програма самоуправління посттравматичним стресовим розладом для військового. Нашими спікерами будуть Ольга Богомолець, народний депутат від фракції Блок Петра Порошенка, голова парламентського комітету з питань охорони здоров'я, радник президента України, Mykola Vovchenko.
Mykola Vovchenko, the coach of Pucelik Consulting Group, Oleksandr, Golovnya, head of the Lundbek export Ukraine, Dmytro Prymachenko, board member of the NGO Kiev City Union of ATO Veterans, and Olga Bogomolets, the topic program of post-traumatic stress disorders, self-management for the military. Esteemed colleagues, greetings, and I would like to inform that in Ukraine as of now we have the adaptation to new conditions in which we are living. Talking about the vision of that way of going back from war to peace. If we imagine the rosary where each stone means a prayer, they are all interconnected. So what we present to you is a small knot on this big chain that we will have to make. Once we are talking about the experience of Ukraine, very tragic experience when young and adult Ukrainians were participating in defense of their motherland. We are saying that the consequences of war exist in every state. If we compare the American experience,
В'єтнамської війни
few people know that during the Vietnam War, 58,000 people were killed, but after the war, 62,000 American soldiers committed suicide within the next 10 days. Also, 50% of those who were in prisons were veterans, and that was they were put to prison because of aggression, acts of aggression. And now we are trying to use the experience of the American specialists, and we need to give the chance to all those who return from war to get a chance to become much better. People who come back from war, such people do not return same people as before the war. Ivan, who left Maria and went to the front line, when such person comes back, this is a different person, and depending on where the person returns, such person can become much better or much worse. I would like to thank all those people who are working on psychosociological rehabilitation. That is a small node on a big chain, because medical rehabilitation and physical rehabilitation does not work without psychological, and psychological without labor, and sociological rehabilitation has no sense. So to develop the state system of protection and to create favorable environment for development of combatants is our primary task. And I would like to thank Frank Pucelik. I would like you to say that to Frank. That is the person who is one of the founders of the theory of the teaching of how to get the warriors out of the trauma. the person who now works in Ukraine. This is a big honor for us, and we would like to thank Frank for the courses he conducted. We taught 160 social psychologists from different regions of Ukraine. That is a 6-week course, full-time. And the next training, the training of military chaplains and psychologists, was also held, and Frank and his team are doing it for Ukraine free of charge. On the basis of those psychologists who will be helping veterans, we have set up a working group which is called Bloc Post Checkpoint. This is a closed type of a group in the Facebook which allows people to exchange information, to get information, to receive certain skills. This group will be expanded and it will be open. And there will be also a website, Bloc Post Checkpoint, because that is a point between the war and peace. And coming back home sometimes is more difficult than mobilization and going to war. Now we would like to present the program of self-management for military. That is the program which is based on the experience of Frank Pucelik, who, when he was himself assisting American military, then he was just 20. The guys who were 18 died in front of his eyes, and we thank Frank, we thank Irina Pinchuk, the director of the Institute of the Judicial Psychiatry, and that is the program for every soldier, every veteran. For those who have no access to psychologists, that is the program which will help understand what steps are to be made to become different, to find own way home. Now, I would like to invite the member of Frank's team, the member of Ukrainian Association of Psychotherapists, Mykola Vovchenko, to introduce this program.
Good morning. As you have heard, Frank Pucelik, who is one of the founders of the methodology that allows to work with post-traumatic stress reaction, and as he says, when he came back home after the war, there was no methodology and no expertise on how to work with veterans, with families, how to work with kids. And they needed a lot of time in order to develop this methodology. As you heard, it successfully proved its adaptability in 8 conflicts, and at the moment we have a well-written and adapted methodology that allows us to work with people who defended our motherland, and this book contains the strongest methodology and issues that will help our warriors when they come back home to adapt with the experience that they got during the war, so to adapt to the life that they come back to. The problem of work with the fighters is not only within this framework, as we have to be able to work with families and children and all people who do not know what the people who come back from the war had to go through. So this book also contains the entire topical base data that will allow us to avoid the disaster that is moving towards us after the combat action is finished. We have held 2 training sessions, 6 days each, and we are satisfied with the result that people are demonstrating during the training. They are asking questions, and we have an opportunity to adapt the questions and to provide them with the answers that will enable them to work with the clients that they work with. That's why we continue to work, we continue to learn, we continue to apply all our forces to make sure that we can provide for the people who are now protecting us and defending our families and our country. Thank you. And again, on behalf of us all, please convey our gratitude to Frank for both free release of copyright and everyone who wants to do so can get this self-management program and download it from the Institute of Psychology site and Olga Bogomolets' site. Besides, those models will be sent for use to all the regions of Ukraine and to all the governors and to all the heads of social services that have to take care of the problems of veterans. Now the floor goes to Dmytro Prymachenko, board member of the non-governmental organization Kiev City Union of Anti-Terrorist Operation Veterans. Hello. On behalf of the veterans and on behalf of our Union of Veterans of the Anti-Terrorist Operation, we want to especially express our gratitude to Frank that he takes part in the problem that is ripening here, and in some cases it is already present. Because we have formed this organization, we started to, on our own, traverse the path of winning over the problems that arise during the war. And I can tell you that even before I got acquainted with the program of self-management, we understood that we are on the right track, and we self-organized according to peer help principle. This does work, no doubt, at least at the moment. I would like also to say that such things that are being organized now against the background of the problem are very necessary. In Ukraine, we don't have an ideal solution for this problem. I'll repeat once more what I saw at Frank Pucelik's, and what we were doing means that we were on the right track. And we are now working on the program which is called the Circles of Trust, and we are sure today that help does start to come from the state and foreign mega experts such as Frank Pucelik. In the process of our activity, we got to know this man as a person, and we know what sort of team this is, and our impression is positive about the results of their work. Once again, great many thanks to all the experts that are taking care of this issue, that are working along these lines, and I remind everyone that only together, only with the help of the state and the society, only society and the state together can win over all the barriers that stand in front of us.
Thank you, Dmytro. Again, I would like to thank the director of the Institute of Judicial Psychiatry, Irina Pinchuk, for the work of her team. Unfortunately, Irina is now on a business trip and she could not join us here because all this material of Frank Pucelik was added by Ukrainian experts, because Ukrainian mentality differs from American. We live in a different time, and this program of self-management for the military was developed by the Institute of Psychiatry, and the Institute found the sponsor who was first ready to finance 5,000 copies of such a notebook, and then when the sponsor saw this program, he said that he will finance the much larger circulation. Now we would like to give the floor to Oleksandr Golovnya, head of the Lundbek export, and the 12,000 copies of the program were published and will be disseminated to different regions, and that is thanks to the money that was donated by that company. Good afternoon. Now, when we have the war going on in Ukraine, we could not stay indifferent. And as specialists, we do understand that when combatants come back home, the war for them is not over. It continues in their heads and souls. It's very difficult to see in the streets of our cities the guys who came back and who have become disabled. And I know, and it has been mentioned, that not only those who were in war suffer, but their families and relatives. And I do hope that this program will help reduce the suffering of those who come back from war and of their relatives. That is our small contribution, which we managed to make for them, for our country, so that their rehabilitation is more successful and faster. Thank you. Thank you to all the participants of the press conference, and some statistical data which could be of interest for mass media. According to the Psychiatric Service of the Ministry of Defense, during the whole period of ATO, because there were 5,500 military were treated. 35% of those servicemen are commissioned because of psychic disorders. About 800 servicemen today suffer from the PTSD. This figure is probably not smaller than the real one. And in the end of the of the press conference, I would like to tell you one very interesting story. In the Verkhovna Rada, there is a member of parliament whose story, I will not name him. I hope that I will convince him to do it. When he was 18, he was mobilized, and he was sent to Afghanistan, where he fought. After Afghanistan, he was sent to Transnistria. He was wounded there, taken prisoner, and he was hiding there in a place where there were the children's bodies. When he came back home, and he was 20, he was absolutely gray-haired. And he could not work, he could not communicate to talk to his parents, he could not eat, he could not have any relations with girls, and for 2.5 years he lived in a forest. He dug a hole for himself there, Then he had a dog, he had a cow, and thanks to business, he has become farmer, and then he has become quite a successful person, the member of Parliament of Ukraine. And such examples, for me personally, he's an example of maximum survival of a person. What he has done from the medical point of view, going for 2.5 years into the place where he was alone. He was working very hard. That was the way of psychological rehabilitation. We know mostly young journalists are here, but Afghan veterans are my friends, people of my age. So many of them got drunk, many committed suicides, but the state never had such statistics. But such statistic is shocking. The self-survival of such person, of that MP, led to absolutely wonderful results. When Dmytro says that we are on the right track, that's true. The desire to survive, the desire to change, and the more veterans in the future become the leaders of the country and the MPs, having passed all this way, the more chances we will have that our country will change. Because the people who saw death of their comrades in arms, they will not be lying, and our task is to help them become successful businessmen, successful leaders of our country. I'm absolutely convinced that if in the parliament we had more of such MPs like this colleague that I have told you about, then the situation in the country would have been different. Our task is the service of psychosomatic rehabilitation. The service of rehabilitation should become the checkpoint, should become the mechanism which will help everyone who comes back from war to become better, more successful, and get involved into managing our state. Thank you. The first question from me, from UCMC. Please tell, how are you planning to get every veteran of ATO involved into your program? They are all over Ukraine. The program is just one program and it starts from Kiev, right?
Якщо ми
If we are talking about the program of self-management for a military person, this is a self-preparation notebook, and our only task is to give this notebook to every fighter. I give this to Dmytro, and he will disseminate to his peers, and we are passing this on to the governors, who will pass them further on. There are 24,000 psychologists in Ukraine now, but do they have enough knowledge? No, only several hundred of them have such knowledge, and not every military person will go to consult a psychologist. Most of them will feel fatigue, and veterans cannot be tired, so for them this notebook is, and they should get it, either lay their hands on them or download them from the sites. And we are absolutely open for cooperation, and in a month there will be another training by Frank Pucelik, where we will try to involve veterans of the anti-terrorist operation, because it is very important that they should become carriers of such knowledge. And you can get this at the city council, and every public organization and veteran organization can get it, and we see there way in what the Kiev veteran organization is doing. They should unite people. They should gather together. Someone will sit and wait what they will be given by the state. I saw such people. I talked to them when they become beggars, when they live only on their pension and they don't have any social realization, and this leads to their downfall when they cannot realize their ambitions. So the public organizations and unions of veterans and participants in the anti-terrorist operation, those are the people who will in the first turn see who needs help and who has the strength to come back and help other people. So through public organizations, through hospitals, and according to my instruction, the hospitals of the veterans of the Great Patriotic War were renamed to the hospitals of veterans of all wars, and they have more than 8,000 births. Write to Bogomolets to info@bogomolets.com, and we will send you every document that you need in order to join in this activity. Could you be more precise about how psychologists could get the necessary information about the needs of those who need help? As of today, on my personal Facebook page and on the site of Olga Bogomolets, we are publishing this information, and we in advance tell when the courses of training will take. So if psychologists want to join, you can send your application to info@bogomolets.com. The previous training was held together with the Council of Churches, and representatives of clergy from all the regions of Ukraine and from many confessions took part, because not only psychologists are people who help. In many cases, in the majority of cases, regrettably, the witness to problems are members of the family, like a wife or a mother will come to a church or to a person to whom they are near and will tell, they beat us and they drink, or he doesn't sleep and he cries out in his sleep. And those people should understand what they should do to help this person, and so that we do not meet this improbable, terrible storm of psychological after effects that the US has gone through. We now have statistics on suicides, and we have a lot of losses in the state of alcoholic intoxication, and there's a disastrous abuse of alcohol, including the front line. Another question? If there are no questions, then thank you very much, and thank you the team. We wish you every success. Please do come. If someone wants to get such a notebook for the presentation in your publication,